We tried to keep it a secret because we didn't want it to affect the rest of the cast.
Mm-hmm.
I even remember at secondary school teachers saying to me, you need to have a backup. I auditioned everywhere, but it came down to the funding for me and where I got the most funding. So I have vivid memories of my mum watching the film when I was really young and her covering my eyes on the scenes that I definitely should not have been watching. So
welcome back to the Imagination Time Studio podcast. I'm here today with Malou, who is the star of the West End's Dirty Dancing, but you would have heard all about that in the bio, and I'm going to ask Kira some questions and we're going to get to know everything about her. So I'm very excited. So I know Kira because we went to a little theatre group when we were younger together, and I would have been quite young. I would have been like 11 and you were like 16.
Oh my gosh, were you
Yeah,
actually?
I was 11 when we did Cats. So yeah, I was really young. So yeah, I was surprised that you still know who I am.
Yeah.
And yeah, so well, let's start off there. So what is your kind of earliest theatre experiences, and can you talk a bit about how you kind of grew to love theatre?
Yeah, I mean, my mum put me into dance classes like most mums do with their children from a young age. So I was about 4 when I started ballet and tap, and she did it just as, you know, as to give me a hobby, as, you know, fitness after school clubs, and probably to give herself a bit of time as well. And something just clicked from quite a young age that that's something that felt right. I've never felt like academics particularly sat well with me, especially English and maths, and I knew about around 7 when I started to see the older girls like go off to dance school. I was like, oh, this is a thing that you can do forever. Like,
yeah,
okay, I'm not sure what it's going to be like, but I was like, yeah, just blinkers on, I'm going to be a dancer. And I even remember at secondary school teachers saying to me, you need to have a backup because that's not an actual job. You need something else. And I remember being very stubborn in the fact that no, I don't need a backup. This is it. I had so much belief in that, which was funny because I was never like given like sorry, excuse me, I've got rid of alcohol.
No, don't worry.
No one ever told me that I was like going to be given the career that I have had, and so no one was really sure what was going to happen. And I think my mum was a bit like, oh, I'm not actually sure if you can make a job and a career out of this, especially a long one, because for dancers, you know, the body ages, and you know there is a shorter shelf life, and for sure you can keep going for as long as your body allows you, and everybody's different. So I went off to a performing arts school at 18. I went to Tiffany Theatre College, and for me, I auditioned everywhere, but it came down to the funding for me and where I got the most funding, because it's a very expensive game, and my mum and my dad helped whenever they could, but it's a lot, especially not only the tuition, but for staying, the dance gear as well, all the dance shoes, the leotards, and so I got the most funding at Tiffany Theatre College. I got the stage scholarship there, which was a lifesaver, like it really was. And I did 3 years there, and when I graduated I was like, I want to be the chorus girl, like in everything. Like I remember seeing 42nd Street and I was like, wow, just how amazing that was. And I kind of got shoehorned into the acting by chance, because one of my first big jobs was Dirty Dancing, but I was a swing and understudy baby, and I was just over the moon when I got that call. It was insane. I remember crying because I graduated and didn't work for a year after, which was, you know, a hard pill to swallow when you've spent so much time training. You're like, this is what you do. You train.
It's horrible.
You graduate and you're like, well, then the job's gone.
I ended up working in a school, like in a primary school. Yeah. And I was like, why did I just spend 3 years training in a drama school and now I'm working in a primary school in Winchester?
Yeah, I was pouring pints and I was like, oh, well, this is it for me. And just at that point where I was like, maybe this isn't for me actually, and I started to doubt it, I got the job. So I was like, this is amazing. And so yeah, I was understudy baby, and I had the opportunity to go on a few times, but I'd never really done acting before. I was so dance driven. So when I finished that, I went and kind of retrained in London in the acting, and I was like, oh, okay, something else is clicking here. I'm really like feeling this, and I went to all the acting classes under the sun. And then when the auditions for Dirty Dancing came back round, I asked my agent, because he said they want you again for understudy baby, and I said, can I audition for baby?
Yeah,
and he was like,
awesome.
oh, unsure, because you're a dancer. And I was like, just give me a chance, like let me prove it. And I did it, and even the director was like, oh wow, something's really changed. And that was kind of my gateway into acting as well.
Awesome.
But it was a great show because I still got to dance.
Yeah, exactly.
So
you get to
the
do
best
both.
of both.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, I've got some questions. So
Okay.
I'm going to read you some of my questions. So my first one is, well, you've kind of answered this, but I was going to say, what was your first experience with Dirty Dancing? I mean, what I actually meant was the film. How did you first know about it? What was your first experience with it? And how did it influence your decision to join the West End production? Or was that kind of just, it came to you?
No, so I have vivid memories of my mum watching the film when I was really young, and her covering my eyes on the scenes that I definitely should not have been watching. So I really, really remember that. And I remember, I think like a lot of young women, something clicked with them in that film, and they just fell in love with it. Everyone wanted to be Baby and be with Johnny. So I remember that being on as a kid. And then when I was 16 at Barton Peveril, I was grounded, hilarious, and the only thing I had was a TV and a videotape, and that was Dirty Dancing. And I remember watching it, rewinding it, watching it again, rewinding, watching it, and just on repeat. And I was like, what is it about this film that I'm like...
It's so special.
Yeah, and I became so obsessed that my alarm in the morning was Hungry Eyes on my phone. Obsessed.
That's so cute.
So I think, I don't know if it was because I've watched it so much and like something was like, it was just like in me. But when I auditioned for the show, I actually auditioned for Penny.
Really?
And I was like, I'm not a Penny. I'm 5'5". Like Penny is legs up to armpits, so tall and slender and athletic. And I was like, I could dance it, but I wouldn't look the part. And then I got the recall for Baby, and I was like, well, this is it for me, because I'm definitely not a baby, like not at all. And then it turns out I am a baby, and getting that call. It was so emotional. And I remember watching the trailer for the production of the show, and I was just crying because it just felt like a full circle moment of like
That's
everything had been
amazing.
leading up to that moment.
That's such cool. So did they call you up and were like, hey, you got the role? And you were just like...
my agent called me and was like, when I auditioned for Baby, and he was like, they want you to be Baby. And I literally, and I couldn't tell anyone. And I was on a job at the moment, and I didn't really know anyone at the time, so I couldn't like share it with them, the excitement. But so I had to like hold it in, and I felt like I was going to burst because I was so excited. But was one of the best calls that I've ever received.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. It's so exciting. I always used to hate, like when I do film things, I used to hate when I first started that you can't like share stuff because of the confidentiality. And with me, it was like, I'd kind of tell my family and stuff, but it was like, you can't take any pictures on set, you can't take any videos. It was really like strict at the beginning. And I remember always being like, oh, I don't know how to do it. I was like trying to get a sneaky picture on set, and now I'm like, I kind of got used to it. But it's horrible when you really just want to tell everyone. And be like, that's what it is.
I know.
That's so exciting. Awesome. Okay. What challenges did you face in preparing for such an iconic role, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of pressure that comes with playing such an iconic role, because I think a lot of people have seen and studied that film just as hard or harder than I had. So I think there's definitely a standard that you're held to, and I held myself to massively. I think a big challenge actually was because there's a clear transition of Baby not being able to dance, learning how to dance, and then learning, like doing Time in My Life at the end of it. So I'm a trained dancer.
Yeah, you're gonna have to backtrack.
I've spent my whole life learning how to dance well, and this big job that I've just been given has told me, no, you actually can't dance well. So I've trained all for this. So I had to really, really try hard to not dance too comically and stupidly, but showing that I'm struggling with the steps and then doing the transition. But even when I was doing Time in My Life, the director didn't want it to be too polished, because it wouldn't be believable that this girl would be able to go from 0 to 100 in the space of a week. So it's still having to like dial down
a little.
everything. But we had a great director who was very good at picking up and then being like, maybe turn this up and turn this down, and keeping an eye on that. But I actually ended up having a lot of fun playing that and not being able to dance. And we luckily had a lot of rehearsal process, and when we were on tour with the show, every Monday when we go into a new venue, because each stage is different, it could be raked, it could be flat, it's smaller, it's bigger, so we had to do the dances at the beginning of each week, so we had a good rehearsal process.
Yeah, I bet. When you had to do the like lift, the actual like end lift, was it difficult? Was it kind of an easy first time thing because you've trained in dancing so much?
Yeah, this is probably the most underwhelming story ever, but my partner Michael, who played Johnny, and our first day of rehearsals, the choreographer Austin said, right, okay, we're just gonna go up into the lift, and you guys okay with it? And we were like, yeah, okay, and then we did it, and then it's never gone wrong.
Oh, that's good.
And he, if anyone's seen him before, he was a big lad with a lot of muscles, and I think from my training with ballet, I had quite a strong back, because everyone thinks it's core in the lift, when actually it's not, it's your back and hamstrings. So coming up like that, you need the hamstrings and the back to come up. But so yeah, I think ballet had definitely helped with that.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, how did you find, a lot of these are about dirty dancing, then there are some others that aren't. So how did you bring your own kind of personality and style to the character, as well as trying to keep it as the well-loved character that the audiences love?
Yeah. Because again, you don't want to stray too far from these characters.
Exactly.
Because
you get hated on.
Exactly, and they're iconic, and they're perfect as they are. So I didn't want to stray too far from them. However, I'm in the costumes, that's already there, and the wig, and the design of what Jennifer Grey brought to Baby was already there, and the lines as well, they're already written. So it was just kind of a matter of me bringing how I felt during that moment. And the thing I love about stage, and with playing Baby in Dirty Dancing, from the moment the curtain goes up until it comes down, you're completely in that world. And it was funny how it was playing make-believe as a kid again, you're so invested in it, and there's no time to break out of it and think about your shopping. Well, it can come to those points for sure, but you're totally immersed in it, and each night is different. We experience different days, and I could be happier one day, or more irritable, or angry, or tired, or sad, and it's funny how when you allow yourself to just feel it and say it, as you know as well, it's different, and you surprise yourself as well. And I think it's not ignoring how you're feeling, just bringing it to it, because the lines are there and everything else is, so it's just saying it how you feel.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Interesting. It's actually crazy, because you think how many people around the world absolutely love the film.
Yeah.
It must be such a big pressure. Did you feel pressure when you kind of first started to keep that iconic?
Definitely. I think especially when we went into the West End, where it was I think 2,069 seats in the Dominion, and people that were coming to that were hardcore. People used to message me and being like, I am obsessed with this film, I love it so much. And you just want to do it justice for those people who have spent money on travel tickets, because theatre tickets aren't necessarily cheap, and there might be someone who's had to pay for childcare as well. So there is a pressure of doing the story justice, Baby justice, and giving the people what they deserve.
And following on from that, do you have some nights where the audiences are wild and some where they're not, or are they always kind of wild?
Yes, and it was so interesting being on tour and seeing what cities were quiet and what cities were rife. And I say rife, we've had to stop the show before.
Really?
Because people were getting kicked out because they just either saying the lines, singing, or just too drunk. And I think the beauty about Dirty Dancing is that it does get maybe people that don't particularly go to the theatre that often to come in, And so I think that is amazing, but I think there was a lot of people who maybe weren't accustomed to theatre etiquette, let's say, and I mean, it sometimes was wild, and then you go to another city and then you wouldn't receive anything, and then you'd be like, oh my god, is it good, like, is it okay, and you start second guessing it because you're not getting the same reaction as you did the week before, which was wild. So it was really interesting, and I was quite surprised at some venues how wild people can get for it, especially over Johnny Castle.
Really?
Yeah.
I bet. Is it really off-putting? Do you find it, like, distracting?
Yes, yes. Sometimes I think a lot of the time you can kind of anticipate what's coming at what moment, but there were times where I got heckled by people in the front row. I think my biggest peeve is people filming.
Yeah.
Because you might not have your flash on, but when you're in a dark auditorium, you light up like a Christmas tree.
Yeah, literally.
And I mean, I definitely think I have a bit of ADD because my attention can flip very quickly. So if I see a light flash, I want to look.
Yeah, I get
I'm
that.
fighting everything, and it does pull you out. So for anyone who goes to the theatre, don't
do that.
Don't film. Because there's certain bits where they can say you can get your phone out at the end and film the end bit, and that's fine. But when it's like a quiet scene and someone's like, this is my chance to film.
Yeah, now I'm going to start filming. It's the worst. I hate that people don't really have theatre etiquette anymore. And I have diagnosed ADHD actually, so I completely get it. Yeah, and I've definitely been on stage before and people have been filming, and it's filming and also like rustling packets for me. If they keep doing it over and over again, I'm like, I want to turn to the audience and be like, shut up!
I completely agree with you. That happened, it was at Blackpool Winter Gardens, and someone on the front row had bought in their own big share packet of popcorn. So it was the rustly packet, it was popcorn, it was in the front row, and it just went on forever. And it was just this that I could hear. I always find popcorn a funny snack to have at theatres because it's not exactly quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some people do really get into it. Yeah.
It's the worst, isn't it? Awesome. Okay. Do you have any kind of behind the scenes moments or funny stories from your time performing in Dirty Dancing?
Oh my gosh, so many. I think it is a world of its own being backstage. I think I only had about 7 minutes off stage the entire show, and a lot of that was quick changing.
Yeah.
But it is so funny. You come off and there's like people just like nattering and groups. But I think when we were on tour, and because there's huge sets, and a few years ago they used to have mechanical turning sets, which were amazing, but they had a lot of issues. So there was times where I'd be on a set and it was meant to rotate and it just wouldn't. And then my next scene was coming up, so I'd have to like run, try and do a quick change and then leg it on. Gosh. There's been people not make it on in the right costumes, and it's so funny when the tiniest thing changes how funny it can be for the people on stage. Like someone couldn't make their quick change in time and came on, I think it was Neil Kellerman, so the grandson of the resort, and he came on and he's trying to be serious and he had no shoes on and it was just socks, and we were all like, what? And it was the breakfast scene and everyone was just looking at this guy's socks, and he knew it. And
oh no.
But yeah, there's been times where like the guy playing Johnny, his flies were down and his shirt was out, and he's meant to be playing this like super cool guy, and it's like, well no, because your shirt's hanging out your flies.
Oh no. I was in a show once where someone who I'm actually directing a show with in August, it's funny because we're friends now, we were friends then, but he was so funny because he was just so like unprofessional in the nicest way. Like I love him, but he was just quite young, and we did Wizard of Oz, and he played the lion, who's also like Zeke or whichever one of the kind of like human versions of, and they actually had to take all the makeup off backstage and do a quick change, and he did it. And in some versions they had like have different actors doing different parts, but in our version they didn't. And he had all his makeup taken off and everything, and his like clothes on, and he made it on just in time. And then he looked down, saw his flies were open, but he like really obviously went like this, and then he went, oh, to the audience, and he zipped them up, and it was completely unintentional. He wasn't trying to be funny. He's just silly.
I think if you commit like that, though, it is such a moment. Actually, this has brought back a memory of this one time when we had just started, and there's a scene where Johnny gets out of the bed, and in the production they had his bare bum, and someone had shouted out something so crude but funny from the audience, and we were on stage like, it's like when you're a child and you know you're not allowed to laugh and all you want to do is laugh. So we were trying not to laugh. I had to turn to the back, but luckily I have no lines coming up. I can then hear Michael, who played Johnny, laughing under his words. And then the audience now know he's laughing, so they're laughing even more. Oh, no. And then he got to the point where he just turned around and was like, yeah, it is what it is. But safe to say we got told off and didn't do that again.
Yeah, I bet. It must be so hard. It's that thing again about being distracted. Like, you have to remain so professional. Obviously, it's professional production, but it's like, it's so much more than people think. It's not just learning everything. It's also then actually performing it and making sure that you're not getting distracted or that things that are going on aren't bothering you. It's crazy.
I know.
And so, well, kind of leading on from that, I guess. So the chemistry between Baby and Johnny is obviously such a key element of the show. How did you and your co-stars work together to create the connection on stage each night?
Yeah. So I met Michael in the audition in 2018, and we had to go in and kind of, they want to see what the chemistry is like and whether you look height-wise. Like, Baby obviously has to be a lot smaller than Johnny, and it was great because he was 6'2", so there was no pressure on mine. But he was a great person to work with. We didn't have an intimacy coordinator or anything at the time, but everything that we did was like choreography. So and I never once felt like I couldn't do it or it was too much, and I'm sure if I did say anything, the production would have been so great and hands-on. And we always had someone there to help us through the scenes, but we ended up actually being together.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
Real life. So we were together 5 years.
Wow.
So yeah, and we were both so young when we were together. I mean, he was 22.
Wow.
I was 23 when we started like doing the show and dating, and it was amazing and it was so magical, and I think I'm so grateful that I had that with him, and I constantly felt like I had my biggest support with me, which is the best thing that you could ever ask for, especially in such a high intense environment, which is touring. So we're a week in each venue in different cities where you don't know, and doing the show, like, you do give a lot and you can be so exhausted from that. So having a teammate with you, it was amazing, and we got along like a house on fire, and we did work together so well. But I think, like a lot of relationships, it was a lot, and I think it was too much too soon, and we were both so young. But we actually continued doing the show together even after we were together, and you know, it was hard. Definitely was. I'm not going to make out that it was perfection and we were the best of friends, because it was hard and it was a new way of being together and doing the show. I mean, we'd just broken up and we were still doing this love story on stage, which was intense. And we tried to keep it a secret because we didn't want it to affect the rest of the cast. But I mean, these things get out, especially when you're on tour. But we've spoken since, and there's nothing but love and respect there.
Yeah, that's the best way to be, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sometimes you kind of get caught in a showmance, don't you? Because I remember so many people that I know have like met through a show, got together, had like an amazing time, and then kind of like you grow up and the show goes. Yeah.
I guess I wouldn't say it was a showmance, because even after the show, because we did stints of it, we were still together and still got along. But we definitely did worry about that at the beginning. We did. It was so political how we got together. We literally were like, how would this work? Like, how would it be for the rest of the team? And would it, you know, what is it like out on the outside? Are we in this bubble? And when we finished,